For this panel, I'd like to welcome up Harry Moseley, the Global CIO for Zoom. I'd like to welcome up Mike Wright, the Global CIO for McKinsey. We also have Lance Ralls, who is the CIO for Belkin. And we have Casey Santos, who is the SVP and Head of Business Process Innovation, Workflow Automation, and a whole bunch more, I'm sure, for AllianceBernstein. So welcome, guys. I guess as a start, maybe if we could do just kind of a quick around the room introduction. I'd like to divide the panel perhaps into three pieces. I'll call it past, present, and future. And I think we can kind of jam together past and present because I think we all know a little bit of what the workplace looked like from a past perspective. And I think now we have a clearer picture of the present. But maybe if you could introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your role, and as well, maybe talk a little bit about what's happened in that transition from past to present, specifically what are the types of things at a project level, and what have you actually done to kind of move the organization to be this kind of new iteration of the new normal? And Harry, we'll start with you.
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, for us, it was not a real hard challenge, given that this is what we do. We enable people to not necessarily work from home, but as we characterize it, work from anywhere. That being said, we did have a couple of challenges because mostly not from the tech perspective, because we're a tech company and everything that we've done is all cloud-based, so all of our apps are in the cloud, so that made it relatively easy. But there were challenges. People working from home didn't have the right kit at home, didn't have the right setup at home. Some people, sort of spouses working at home and they've got two young kids who are getting educated at home and they don't understand the notion that mom and dad are working from home. They're not here to play games. They're not here to read stories, etc., and do coloring and what have you. So one of the interesting stories is, so one couple put duct tape on the floor in their living room to explain to the kids that when they're on this side of the duct tape, they're actually at work, and when they're on the other side, they're at home. We're staying like this. Yeah, and we're staying like this through, we've made a decision to stay like this through the end of this calendar year. We have 19 offices around the world and they're literally all closed, and we'll evaluate where things stand in January.
Sure. Mike, on your side is, I assume, some similarities, but maybe introduce yourself and talk a little bit as well.
Yeah, so Mike Wright, I'm the Global CIO at McKinsey. A lot of our work is mobile already. Our consultants work often at client sites, in the office, trains, planes, and automobiles type of thing. But I think what COVID has highlighted is being mobile is not the same as working remotely. And we have found, there's a large percentage of our population also who are office-based, doing more of our firm-based work, and helping them change the way that they've been thinking about the importance of their role has been a big challenge. As to has education. Adoption is always a challenge in technology. And I think, the sudden nature of the flip from pretty much being sort of in the office or in clients and suddenly having to do everything from home has been a shock. And we found a lot of our work in March and April was again about training, education, so we can think how to collaborate remotely, how to make sure we're effective across the video conferences.
Makes sense. Lance, on your side?
Yeah, hi, Lance Ralls, Global CIO at Belkin International. It's been interesting, the digital transformation that we've been doing for years really was highlighted in how smoothly it went to move to work from anywhere, as Harry said. And really it was interesting because there were a lot of projects we'd done that maybe management wasn't quite sure, didn't think, it just seems like some tech dude, trying to put some technology in we don't really need. But it has really proven itself out now in this new world order, which has been fantastic. We also bought Linksys from Cisco about 6 years ago. So the whole home networking that ties into your work, making sure everything is functioning properly is a big piece for us as well, just from a business perspective. How do you extend your network out to where people are working? And so that digital transformation, the adoption that we've seen since this has happened, I mean, obviously a lot of negatives and heartfelt, go out to some of the COVID-19 victims and other things that are going on in the world. But there's been a lot of positives for us, driving adoption, having people utilize, similar collaboration tools and other things that we're doing has been more positive than negative, frankly, from that perspective. We've got the mental health thing to deal with, but we can talk more about that in the panel, but there's been a lot of good from this. We were a company that designed and built everything in California. And, and it was always thought of in our company that we were always a collaborative company. There was no such thing as really work from home for most of our organization. It was a work from work environment. And that shifted greatly. And it's been interesting to see that people are as productive in a lot of cases, not, when you need to use machinery and tools to engineering and other things that we do, it can get complicated. You need to be in the office for those things. But by and large, it has shifted the mindset of our executive team of how you work. And it's been mostly positive in that case.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Casey.
Hi. Yeah, so I joined AllianceBernstein in November, so it was an interesting time to make a job change right before all of this happened. I came from General Atlantic, where as private equity professionals, they were very mobile, so we were mobile first, cloud first. At AllianceBernstein, we were, like others, we had a very big work from the office community, and so had invested a lot, or we have invested a lot in technology such as VDI, which has been helpful, as well as we had already done some really good things. We had Zoom, we had other mobile tools, but I don't think we were prepared for those being at home. And so we did have to do a lot of drop shipping of hardware because not everybody had the right setup for everybody working at home. I think one of the things that we've noticed is that some of the applications that we have could be more seamlessly integrated or more seamlessly used on our platform. So we're looking at more native applications as how we think about how you switch back and forth between apps on the mobile devices and on laptops. So that's one of the things we are thinking very closely about, and that's our next generation. I think the other thing that the collaboration, we used to do a lot of collaboration, a lot of sessions in person. Sticky notes were very popular for those kinds of things. And how do you mimic that experience of sticky notes, right? Like that's something that's, being able to do agile planning is a very difficult thing to do remotely. And so we're playing with tools to think about that. So those are some challenges we've had. And then I think the silver lining of this is that we had a lot of initiatives in place to improve our ability to work from home, but also our interactions with our clients who now are also working from home. And many of them we were concerned maybe about, the different generations adopting new technology and how well they would take on more of these tools. And now because they are, my son does Zoom with his grandparents, every day. So how do you think about that combination of acceptance of new technology and comfort with new technology, and can we accelerate some of our client initiatives? So those are some of the things that will change the way we work and when we're in the office and when we're not in the office. And I do believe we'll go back to that hybrid model. And so we're gonna have to figure out how do you make it feel like someone that's working from home is having the same experience in a meeting as someone that is sitting in the office. So those are some of the things we're thinking about.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think maybe I'll kind of throw out a couple of different topics here, but I think there was something that actually was really interesting that you alluded to, Lance, which is, this concept of adoption. And I always think of myself in many ways as kind of a bellwether around some of the use of technology. And I'm a late adopter on many things. For those who don't know me that well, I still have a BlackBerry, but I use it because, phones should have buttons at some point. But in reality, I've had Zoom. We've been a Zoom customer for a very long time. We've used Zoom. I don't think I was ever really, a fan of going on camera. I didn't hop on and do video calls. And now it seems like that's everything, right? And so what's interesting to me is kind of what I'll call the role of the CIO, the role of technology within an organization. And to Lance's point, we talked through all of these things. It was really about just tossing it out there and saying, look, when the time comes, this will be the next iteration, that next enabler. And so I think the adoption that kind of came as a result of this is important. As you look across kind of what comes next, and you look at really the future of this kind of work environment, what are some of the things that you think are going to be most important to actually enabling, and what is that next new normal look like? Harry, for you, obviously, I imagine there are features and things coming on Zoom, or maybe you can share a little bit about just kind of what vision looks like for that hybrid model. Yeah.
So a couple of thoughts. One is just to sort of pick up on some of the comments from Lance and Casey and Mike. The myths of the past are gone. The myths of the past of, we can't work from home, we're not going to be very productive. That's all gone right out the window. In fact, many organizations have found that actually people are more productive working from home, and they like working from home. They prefer to have their kids in school. But the other thing is that just to sort of pick up on Casey and your son talking to your parents over Zoom, thank you for that, by the way, is that I believe now everybody is now a millennial. My 82-year-old father-in-law Zooms with my wife every evening. He Zooms with his grandkids in Europe and across the States. And it's he would never have done that in the sort of pre-COVID times because he just it wasn't like he would fly. But now he's not flying anywhere. And the reason I say everybody's a millennial is because people, whether it's investment bankers, they suddenly woke up and realized, hey, this video stuff really actually works very well. And investment bankers, and Mike, it's like in your business, in professional services, it's kind of like the same thing, right? They would like to do in-person meetings. They fly to London or fly to New York for that one-day meeting, and now they're using video, and they found out it really works. I think that the hybrid collaboration is going to be really challenging, because we're used to sort of collaborating in the office or collaborating in a virtual world. But when we have parts of the organization in the office and part working from home, how does that work? If we were all in the office and we were part of the same team, it's kind of like I might pop over to Casey and say, hey, Casey, it's like you want to grab a cup of coffee. And, or I might go to Lance and say, hey, Lance, I got a quick question. Lance may turn around and say, hey, Mike, I think you had some experience in this area. That sort of collaboration, how does that work in this new hybrid model? And I think we're going to see some interesting things happen in that domain. But I can't talk publicly about those. But as they say, watch this space. So some fun things coming that are going to enable that hybrid collaboration, and it's going to
sounds
be
mysterious.
Cool.
I like it. Mike, I think, I know. Well, hey, man, I'm all for it. Mike, I think if I look at kind of, the technology industry, we love our three-letter acronyms. So there's what I'll call, WFH, and now everybody's talking about RTW, return to work. As you kind of go back into offices, as you start to do more travel, as you look at kind of the cultural aspects of kind of a past of, being a very in-person firm, how much of this do you think is going to stick? How much do you think is really going to change the way that McKinsey does business? And what is your kind of, I guess, bold prediction in terms of, where this goes?
Bold predictions. Okay. And I think I would have three bold predictions in terms of things that will stick and change. Firstly, I think we need to recognize that behaviors and expectations for behaviors have changed already and have changed fundamentally and will not return back to normal. So, for example, in our own case, we had an expectation that to really build a strong client relationship, you had to have an in-person meeting. You just couldn't do it across a video call or anything like that. That has proven to be wrong, and that you can build relationships remotely. So I think also then thinking about management supervision of tasks is going to change dramatically. We have tended to work by thinking people can get apprenticeship and other learning by being sort of overseen by people. I think that thought about how do you learn and how do you build apprenticeship will need to change. So I think there's a whole raft of fundamental changes around behavior. The second thing that's going to change, I think, is around training. How do we think about providing training, particularly for people around, technology and new capabilities about how to be effective? And, it's lovely that you're still hanging on desperately to your BlackBerry, but there are tools that actually do a little more than that these days. But I think, and also in particular, training for how to induct people into new teams and new organizations. A lot of, I think, the last few months, many of us have worked because we've got existing physical-based network relationships. Now, more and more people are joining new companies and are doing so entirely remotely. So how do we make sure that we're training them and we're helping them feel inducted and part of a community? And then the third thing, the last point I'd make, is I think we will have a much greater focus on health, and not just physical health. People are missing the commute to the office, which, for some of us may have been active, it may have been less active. But even just walking down the street, jumping on and off the bus, walking upstairs, there's quite a bit of physical activity people are missing. And mental health. I think it is quite clear as we're beginning to see extended periods that for people mentally, if you're sat in front of a video call, it is actually more stressful. Our brains have to work harder to pick up the non-verbal cues and so on and so forth. And also the confusion that we find when we're working from home, we're playing from home, we're socializing from home. In fact, we're doing everything from home. And our brains haven't been sort of used to that kind of consolidation of everything into a single place. So I think those are the three bold predictions. Behaviors will change dramatically. Training will have to be fundamentally reinvented. And health, particularly mental health aspect, will take a much, much more important role.
I think that's an important point. And Lance, I know you had mentioned it as well. What are the things that you're doing or that you're seeing across employees and ways to actually improve and drive that health? And I think the other kind of side of that coin is what I'll call the culture aspect too, right? New employees that join, they don't have the same level of ingrained culture. So what are the aspects that are important for you there?
Yeah, so we certainly there's so many more global meetings, I'll say now in this new world, to keep people connected, to keep new employees connected. We are, having, town halls, more town halls with our executive leadership team. There's, that's being all thrown on our intranet site, trying to engage all of our employees, new ones as well. And so that's been a big factor for us. Another factor for us, and just got a little time, I'll leave Casey a little time. Another factor for us is not only the training, Mike, that brings up for your employees, but for us, for our customers. How do we train the technicians at Best Buy and Apple Store and the folks at Walmart and so forth? Like, how do we train those? So, what does the future look like? Do we start looking at AR, VR, MR from that perspective of trying to train instead of getting on a plane and training various folks? How do you do that without, in this new virtual world? So that is also a challenge that we are tackling as well in the new world order. And like I said, the adoption's been fantastic. A quick story is, our CFO is awesome, but like most of our CFOs, don't mess with their close, right? Don't add any new technologies that could impact the close. And now, when we went to this virtual world, our CFO had some processes that were not so good. Cloud storage he didn't want to use. And so when his close didn't go so well, he started adopting the new technologies. And I said, yeah, remember a year ago when I talked to you about those technologies that we wanted to do and you didn't want to adopt? And he's like, all right, I'm ready to adopt now. So anyways, that's where we're kind of going in the new world.
That's good. No, and I think that's appropriate too. And Casey, I think it's interesting, right? You joined in November of 2019, which gives you kind of a 3-month process to just get acquainted with everybody, which is probably an easier kind of, maybe onboarding than some of the employees that are coming in now. But I guess as you look at your role and you look at kind of the direction and the future of the workplace, what are the things that you're looking to enable for the organization? What is kind of your process for driving and helping accomplish some of those strategic goals, whether it be mental health, it be, organizational culture, or just be the ability to train and do work and build a workforce remotely?
Yeah, well, we're in the middle of hiring up a big staff here in Nashville. So that's really top of mind for us, is maintaining our culture while doing a very big kind of lift and growing a big team here in Nashville. So it has been something we're very thoughtful about, and it's one of the main reasons we do plan on going back to the office, is to provide, especially for younger professionals, that opportunity to learn hands-on. But in the meanwhile, we do recognize that we won't be coming back to the same environment we had before where everyone was in the office. So I think the things we'd like to have is an experience where our teams can work interactively regardless of where they're sitting, right, as we talked about. So looking forward to hearing what's happening in the industry, what's coming to provide those collaborative experiences. We are doing a lot around wellness. I think one thing that has happened is there's a blurring of personal and professional lives, as you mentioned with the Harry, with the duct tape, right? So how do you provide wellness? That's a very tough thing. So around encouraging people to take wellness days and time off to just decompress, and be unplugged, because you're just plugged in all the time now. And so I think we're really cognizant of that. We're doing a lot of communications and our resource groups, employee research groups, where we're creating very interesting creative programming where we would have had meetings before and speakers and guests. We're doing a lot of that virtually now. So I think that's an interesting space when you think about how companies and nonprofits are going to be creating programming that's not in person so much, right? So that's an interesting space that we're looking at. How do you provide interactive programming in those cases? This is a case in point, right? This conference is a good first step.
So many, I think so many of us were in the IT field, always on, always plugged in all the time, and now everybody has to deal with that. Harry, I'm glad that you brought up the duct tape story, and I'm happy that it ended the way it did, because when you said the kids are at home and you're bringing out the duct tape, I wasn't exactly sure where that was going. So, really appreciate everyone taking the time today. Thank you very much. Please.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Casey's point, it's like, on technology, there was always the blur between consumerization and the professional enterprise technology, and now you have the blur between not just the technology,
enterprise,
but your personal
consumer
space.
side, yeah, and
your personal space as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time, Mike, Lance, Casey, Harry. We'll be on the lookout for the workplace of the future and see if we're all right or wrong. And really appreciate you taking time today. So thank you very much for joining.